Lawrence Castillo. I am the president of Brody Pennell Heating and Air Conditioning in Los Angeles. And we have four companies here. We have two in Los Angeles, one in Orange County, and one in San Diego. Myself and my partners own these businesses. But our Brody Pennell is our flagship brand. We bought these businesses 3.5 years ago, and Brody was sort of an afterthought and a forgotten about old brand here in LA. It's now 79 years old, but we bought the business with 39 employees, and 3+ years later, I'm sitting at 170 people in this business now, and we're growing the other businesses as well. So our little platform, we're top line about 70 million between our little businesses. And, just like all of you on this call, we're out there fighting the good fight every day. I've been doing this for about 25 years and running air conditioning companies. And, I see all the Ben Franklin in the 1 hour. And, as I've talked about on a number of podcasts, I attribute much of the success that I've had to Jim Abrams. And I had a chance to be the general manager of 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning in Los Angeles many years ago. And I had, direct access to Mr. Abrams because our business was one that they had purchased that had issues, and they had thrown a lot of people at trying to turn it around. And so as a result, I've had access to really one of the most brilliant minds in our industry and learned so much. And, the template that John Young and Jim Abrams and Terry Nicholson left behind for all of us to follow has really been a blueprint for success for so many businesses all over the nation. So, I'm quite familiar with the way that the businesses are operated, and I'm sure that all these years later, many of these businesses use the same blueprint. So it's been really important in my career, and really in the success of a lot of folks like yourself, comfort advisors, selling technicians that used to work in these businesses. I should mention, I think some people know me for, I was the first general manager at a company called Service Champions in Orange County. And that was really the other piece for me, where I was able to, pick up a lot of great stuff, and, take it with me in my career further, now as an owner of a business. But, spent years there really seeing how great process and procedure could help a business to be successful and really grow beyond, what you ever thought it could do. And so that's what I do. And, all these years later, here I am with these four businesses, but my day is still made up of standing in front of technicians and talking to my salespeople and helping them through their day. I understand the concerns. I used to sell air conditioning when I was the general manager of a much smaller company. When you're doing double duty and you're running the business in the morning, and in the afternoon, you're out there running leads. And that's the way you do it when you're a small business. And so, I'm quite familiar with the concerns and the things that you guys go through, sitting there at the kitchen table, grinding it out. And so I know, what you guys face every day, and it's not easy, and it can be a beat down. But if you're positive, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but if you're a positive person in a good frame of mind, who's well prepared, you can achieve almost anything. Here at Brody, from a sales standpoint, I have one person that sells 8 or 9 million a year. I have a few of them between 5 and 7 million a year, and a whole mess of everybody between 2 and 5 million. And in my other businesses, have some $5 and $6 million performers. And I think that that's probably, what you folks want to hear. And so today I plan to share some of the things I think that make the guys that work in our businesses a success. And I think it's important to draw the distinction between what we do and what others do. And had the good fortune to be on with Brian and Nate a few weeks ago on the Waste No Day podcast and talked a little bit about this, but I do think it's quite an important point. Um, we're in Los Angeles, and the high temperature today will be 79 degrees. And not to say that we get a couple of heat waves every summer where we'll have an 86-degree day in the LA basin, but it's not like that typically. And because of that, we're not selling on failure. Like we don't pull up to a house and get to see bad run caps. We can't sell that way because we don't have failure. We have to sell on cleanliness and efficiency. And so because of that, I think our process is different, and the way that we have to approach a call is different. Our calls are much longer, and we have to go into a house and we have to go through this whole process and to be able to build value and connect with the homeowner and keep them involved in the call and educate them and what we call touch them every 10 and let them see the quality of work and let them see the before and the after and continue to educate them. And if you do all of that right, you can build a great case for replacement and, if not replacement, for selling a service agreement. But I think here we have to work harder. And I'm always telling my technicians that we just have to be better than all the other guys in all the other cities because we don't have weather behind us at our back. It's just hard work that's going to allow a guy to sell $8 million of air conditioning in a city where there isn't severe weather. We don't have a heating season either. There are 20 million people sitting within 2 hours of where I'm at right now. And these people move here because the weather is perfect, right? It's the palm trees and the beaches, and this is the place that people come to vacation. And we're fortunate to live here. But when you're in air conditioning and heating, it's there are better fates in the world. So I always tell my guys that we just have to be better and we have to work harder. And we still have achievers, like I mentioned, people that are selling $5 and $6 and $8 million in heating and air conditioning. And I really believe that it's because of our process. And that process is something that we teach repetitively here. We're always hiring. I have a school. I established a school here. I hired a trainer from a local trade school. And so we recruit people into the business off the street, and we put them through a 12-week academy, and then they're out in the field riding along, and at some point they become a maintenance technician and hopefully can work their way up to service. But because we have this refresh of talent and we're always hiring people, we always have to sort of reset things and make sure everyone's trained on the same process so that everyone's doing the same thing out there. I always hate hearing from a customer that, hey, Johnny technician came out here and his process was much different than what we've seen before, or why did the last guy not tell me this? And I'm sure you're all familiar with that. So it's important to us to try to have some continuity in what we do and for everyone to be running the same process. And I think that from both a service and sales standpoint, I think that's important. And, for the managers who might be listening to this, I think it's worth inspecting. And, that's having some one-on-ones and talking to your people about how they are running a call and how they are selling, and just becoming familiar once again with what they're all doing differently. It's a great exercise because, number one, you learn a few things about the achievers and the ones who are, really going at a great pace, and you find out some things that you can share with the rest of your people. But you also find out a few of the failures. And so, in this business and our businesses here in Southern California, it's important for us to really know what our people are doing in the field and how they're running their calls. So a few things. And I'm going to tell this little story just because it happened last night and it popped up, and I'm still sort of shaking my head about it. But I have a friend who has a company here in Los Angeles, and he might see this at some point. So I apologize, but I just feel that it's an important point to make. Uh, Still a great friend, and I still really respect your business. And I won't use his name, but he texted me last night and he said, "Hey, I'm having an HVAC system installed in my house tomorrow by my guys." He said, "I want to know how you approach that." He says, "Because I'm a little nervous about them being in the house and, knowing where I live and all that stuff." And, everybody hires differently and they run their business differently. But I told him, I said, "Hey," I said, "if you want to take your guys out of this, put off the project. I'll have my guys come and install it. You can, rest assured." Um, I feel like I could put almost any crew of mine here in my house and feel great about it. I think I could trust them to watch my kids. And I attribute that to the hiring process that I go through. And this is shameful probably to admit, but I've got four businesses and I still am the final word on hiring everybody here. And it's probably because I want to know who is working for me, and my clients trust me to make a good hiring decision and to not send a criminal or some weird character into their house. And so I'm involved in that process, and it's not a short process for us to hire people. We of course background check and drug test and do all the things that a lot of big companies do. But when he said that, I was like, wow, man, like I've got a reduct that I got to do at my house here in the next couple of months. And like, I've got no problem scheduling a crew to come over. And anyway, it just struck me. And I guess the message in this is that we're all being judged. Everybody listening to this call, your bosses, they hired you, but they judge you, right? And they judge you based upon the things that they see. And they only see you if you're outside, if you're a technician or an installer or whatever, or a comfort advisor, you're in the office for an hour in the morning and then you're gone, right? And I think it's important that in that hour that, you present yourself the best way possible, right? It's real easy to make a judgment that will just stay with one of your managers or one of your bosses for probably a really long time, right? And if you want to be in a good place in their heads, all it takes is a moment of they're walking by you and they hear your foul mouth, or, they see something, dirty truck, your shoes look awful, your uniform is not tucked in. I remember these things, right? I've got 130, technicians, 150, I think, technicians and installers here, 130. And I make my judgments, right? But so I think it's important for you in the time that you have with your managers to just really make an impactful statement about yourself. This is also how you separate yourself from the competition. I see, you guys sitting next to shoulder to shoulder, and you're sitting next to your competition, right? You're competing with everybody next to you for the best calls and the best opportunities on the board every day. And as a manager, I just feel a little bit better about somebody when I'm seeing them for that hour in the morning, that they're everything that I would want to see, right? Don't give anybody something negative or a reason to think badly about you, because we do judge and we do talk about you guys. And, it may not be top of mind for you and you may just be going about your morning, but I see it all and I think about it. So just a little helpful hint here from a guy who's been running air conditioning companies for a long time. Wanted to talk about, and to that point, there's a guy named Keith Mercurio. He was the president of Nexstar for a while, and I know in some when I was coming up in Airtime 500 and Success Group companies, Nexstar was a bad word. But whether you believe that or not, this guy is a really smart guy, and he's a public speaker, and he's really impactful. But he said something on a podcast And right back to what Brian was saying about podcasts, I listen to podcasts, and I learn so much because there are so many people that are so smart and much smarter than I am, and I listen intently. But he said something on a podcast year ago, year and a half ago that stuck with me and just sort of popped up for me this week. He his dad was ill, and I think he was in the hospital and going through, I think he was really just dying. And he was, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody so emotional on a podcast. He was just like, to listen to it, it was just a magical hour. And he said that in in those moments when his dad fell ill, you start to be contacted by people, right? People who are just learning about what happened, and natural curiosity, right? People want to know. And he's going through this traumatic time in his life, right? It's your dad. And, in those times, sometimes you just want to shut the world out and be left to try to get your head around it, and just, you drive around all day and you're trying to get through your day, and you've got tragedy around you. And he said that at that time, he said he really learned the difference between people. And he said there are two kinds. There are the ones that take, and there are the ones that give. And by that, he was saying that, this happened, and all of a sudden there were a bunch of people that popped up and calling and, oh, tell me what happened and give me the story and let's talk about it. And I want to make, I want to share my opinions about this. And he said, that it was so draining to deal with those kinds of people because they sort of made it about themselves, right? He said, and then there were the people that just sent the text that said, hey, we're so sorry to hear this. You're in our prayers. If there's anything that we can do, we are here for you. And he said, those are the givers, right? Those are the people that help to fill your cup and understand what you're going through, and to not suck the life and the energy out of you. And I thought about that this week because, and once again, my apologies to a couple of my salespeople who will probably see this at a later time, but I have a couple of guys who are really pretty negative right now. And I scheduled meetings with them yesterday, and understand that they're both achievers, $500,000-$600,000 a month in air conditioning replacement sales. And I had to explain to them that I need positive influences in my life and in the lives of the people in our businesses. And these two guys had been hanging their head and bitching each other into oblivion about everything, the calls and the people, and, just nothing but complaints. And, and I have a lot of people I'm responsible for, right? I have a lot of field personnel, a lot of office personnel, my own family at home, right? I've got all these people in my life. And these two were just a negative influence. And it just sucks the life out of you. I've got to deal with this and try to get these guys' heads right. And there's nothing left for me when I'm done dealing with them, right? The text messages come over and they're just so negative. I got tired of it. So I called them in. And then I called them out, right? I brought them in and I said, hey, like, this has got to stop. This isn't fair to anybody. I hate what I'm seeing from you two. I know that you two are better than this. And I just said, you can't do this to people. You can't be this negative. There are things in all of our lives that are sometimes out of our control. And it's up to us to figure out how to compartmentalize that and to deal with that on a daily basis. You're fighting with your wife at home, or you've got, some financial issues, or you've got family problems, or whatever the case may be. It's going to affect you in your daily life as you run calls, but it's also going to affect everybody around you, including your coworkers, right? Which is really quite unfair. you can't bring the room down. You can't bring people down. You have to be a light in people's lives. You have to be a positive influence. Because if you're not doing it in the room that you're sitting with the people right now, you're not going to be doing it with your customers, right? Like these people want to be energized when you hit the door. They want to be, they want to confirm that they've made the right choice in selecting your company, right? They're wanting 5-star service, and they want to see that, you know, they want confirmation of that. And you guys, you hold all that power. You hold all the power. You know, you're a man on an island when you walk into a house, and it's just you and what your mama gave you. And that's really what separates you between failure and success. And I think that reconciling the way that we are and the negative energy that we carry is an important piece in that. And so yesterday I just went over it with those guys and I just said, listen, I said, I can't have this anymore. I can't have it. You know, you guys are just, it becomes toxic. And I think they got the point, and, you know, they went out and sold yesterday. And, but sometimes people need to be reminded, right? And I don't think we should be ashamed of reminding people about that, you know, whether you're a manager or whether you're somebody that sells in the field, whether it's a teammate of yours or whether it's an employee of yours. You know, don't hang around the negative one, right? Because there's one in every room, or there's multiple in every room, right? And those people aren't going to do anything for you, right? The calls are the calls. You're going to make of them what you make of them. But there's always going to be somebody who's going to be complaining about them and hanging their head. And, you know, it's just, so I guess the message is don't be that person, right? Nobody likes that person. And I'm sure that most of you are better than that, right? You know, talking about your role in the business, you know, every movie or play has a cast, right? And everybody has their role in that movie or play. And all of you on this call have a role in the business, whether you know it or not. And like I was telling you, you know, as managers, we have org charts, we have performance metrics, we have, you know, I have a tech tracker that comes out every day that goes to all my technicians, and they see where they stand. And, you know, I have this interaction with these guys every day, and I can see the people who are trying to improve their standing and they want to have a different or a better role, right? You know, in this business here, I've got a guy who's the best duck salesman, right? And I don't know if he was, if he directed himself down that path, and how he passed everybody else by, but there was something about that guy that he said, listen, I want to be the guy here at this business for this. And I want to know more than everybody. I want to have a better spit game than everybody. You know, like I was saying, an actor, they memorize their lines, right? An actor, somebody in a play, or someone, you know, has a role in a cast. And this guy's memorized his lines, right? And at the end of the day, that's all we are as actors. We're actors with our customers. We're actors with our families. We're actors with everybody in our lives. And because you're somebody different with all of these people. And even our tune-up, right? It's just good theater, right? If you put on the show and put the dirty filter next to the clean filter, and, you know, you shake the rust from the flue vent, and you do all of these things to create urgency and good theater. And so it is up to all of you. If you want to have a starring role, or if you just want to be an extra in the background, you know, everybody here should want to get on stage and want to be the leader and want to be the best at something in their business. And I've got a lot of guys here. I got some guys that are the best at getting reviews. Some guys are the best at selling service agreements. And so there's a bunch of roles, and you're all auditioning every day. And, you know, the ones who put in the time and memorize their lines, those are the ones, you know, to the victors go the spoils, right? I want to talk a little bit about creating urgency. And this goes a little bit back to what we said earlier about being here in Los Angeles where there isn't severe weather, right? The guys that work here have to be outstanding at creating urgency. And the first time that I did Nate and Brian's podcast, I think I talked about this, and I show this to my technicians and my salespeople quite frequently. But the people who are the greatest at creating urgency is the home shopping network, right? And that might be something you haven't heard for a long time or even watched for a long time, but it's still out there. And there's still lots of channels that do this. And these channels prey upon the weak, right? And they create urgency like no other. You tune in and you turn it on, and there's the lady with the copper pots and pans in front of her, right? And there's a whole set. There's a 16-piece set. And these copper pans, she's talking, and they're not showing her, they're showing the copper pans. And she's talking about how great these pans are and how they're nonstick and they're Teflon coated and they're scratch resistant and they're beautiful to set on your cooktop. And she's bestowing all of the great features and benefits that they have. Meanwhile, as you look at the screen, there's a countdown clock that's telling you that you only have 4 minutes and 37 seconds to buy these pots at this price, right? They are creating a great sense of urgency by counting the clock down right in front of you. Like, here we go. You better buy these pots right now because we're moving on to the next thing and this deal is going to be over. In addition to that, they've got somebody on the phone. We've got Jane from North Carolina on the phone. Jane, what do you have to say about these pots and pans? Oh, let me tell you, I bought 6 sets for everybody for Christmas. They are incredible. It was the best Christmas gift I could have given. I'm buying another 6 sets this year for other people, right? So you got the person that's showing them on camera. You've got somebody talking in the background. You got the countdown clock. And they've got the copper ones, and there's 437 sets, and they've got the black ones, and there's 217 sets, and they got the all these different, and all of a sudden those numbers are depleting, right? The 400 sets just went to 300 sets. Then now there's 250 sets, and they're disappearing, and they're going, and you better act now. And you know what? We'll make it really easy for you because we got this easy pay plan where you can pay only $59.95 for 6 months or 12 months. And if you do that, we can make this really easy for you. And you've got all this nonsense going on. It's just it's mind-boggling what they're doing, right? If you really look at it, they're literally hitting you from every direction, right? And we know it's nonsense. There's warehouses full of these pots and boxes, right? They don't know what to do with them. They've overordered. They got tons of this stuff in warehouses all over the country. And the clock is counting. And guess what? People are pulling out their credit card and they're buying them hand over fist, right? And it's just creating urgency. And they're really good at it. And part of your job every day is to go into people's houses. A big part of your job is to go into people's houses and create urgency. And I think that the ones who really understand how to create urgency, they separate themselves from everyone else. And we all decide how, which tools we're going to use to create urgency, right? Because there are many different ways to go about this. And, you all run a call differently. And if you're a selling technician and you're selling your own calls and you're going out there and it's a, 27-year-old no cooling call, and you're going to walk in the door and you're going to assess the situation and see if you've got 2 legs there and you're doing your whole thing, your thermostat questions and your shoe covers and getting shown to the equipment and setting up your workspace. And, there's so many steps in the process, but as you make your way through that call, you should be starting to identify where the urgency is going to come from, right? As I mentioned, here in Los Angeles, we don't sell off of failure. We sell off of cleanliness and efficiency, right? And you have all of that at your disposal, including failure probably in many markets, right? A bad cap or, whatever the case is. But you get to decide, what are the senses of urgency that I need to use, right? It's not copper pots, but you have to, there are a lot of different ways that you can approach a call. And I think the thing that might separate the people who have ultra success as opposed to those who are enjoying moderate success, I think they're really well rehearsed and their calls are predictable. And they look at the successes that they have and they repeat them. I'm a real big believer in not winging it, right? All of my technicians run the same tune up here. It's the same tune up. It's very scripted, right? You remove the top from that condenser and you put it down 10 feet to the side, right? You don't just like everything we do. And you wash that outdoor coil and we wax the compressor. Like we're here to clean, right? I don't have the weather here. We have to show them incredible before and after. And if they see that after, at a minimum, we're leaving with a service agreement. They want us back next year to do the same thing, right? Because I want another chance in the house if I'm not going to sell it today. And so I think the ones that are really successful are well scripted, well rehearsed. They have a process and they're not winging it. The calls should not look different. The calls should look the same. And I think that that's something that probably all of us can work on is having some definite repetition in what we do. I think success comes from that. Wanted to talk a little bit about having a written plan. I think that it's a really important thing for everyone to have a written plan. And and rewarding yourself as well for your progress. No, a lot of you aren't going to get rewarded for your progress, but you have to set benchmarks for yourself, so that you can have this plan and that you'll have success with it. And so it goes a little bit to knowing your math. And there's a class that I do, and I did in 2 of our locations in the last 3 weeks, and it's about knowing your math. And the bittersweet symphony, right? You try to make ends meet, you're a slave to the money, then you die, right? Isn't that what they say in that song? And so we're a slave to the money. All of us are, right? And I think that it's incumbent upon all of us to be smart enough to not have to be a slave to the money, right? I think that so what I do in this class is I build a household budget, right? And I started doing this at Service Champions. And many years later, a lot of the guys remember this class and they said it helped them in their life. But I get in front of the whiteboard and I start to ask them what all of their monthly expenses are, right? And pencil it out. What do you pay in rent? What do you pay for your cable bill? What do you pay for lunches every day? And that's a thing, right? Like, I bring my lunch every day, or I can drive through and spend $20 a day, $100 a week, $400 a month on lunches, right? But I got kids and a wife at home, and that $400, I would much rather do something for the kids with that $400 than, feed myself when my wife sends me with my lunch every day. But so I pencil out all the expenses that you have in your life, right? Your car payment, your car insurance, a little extra money that you guys spend on entertainment, all of this stuff. And we come up with what your monthly budget is in your house. And there are people that don't go through this exercise. And I don't know how you can live your life and not know how much you're going to have left at the end of the month. It's all math, right? And I think we have to know, like I said, we have to know our math and how we're going to get from point A to point B with a little extra, right? We're all trying to, you want to take your kids to Disneyland, or you want to take them to Six Flags, or you have got braces to pay for, you want to take them on a trip, or, you got to buy school clothes for kids. Like, you got to know what you have extra, right? And it doesn't matter how much money you make. And the only way to do that is to know your math. And so we do this exercise And we come up with the fact that, okay, your monthly expenses are whatever, $7,000. And okay, so what do I need to do to get to that $7,000 and to have X amount left over, right? Whether it goes into your savings or whether it goes into a vacation fund. And this is something that everybody here should do. Everything we do in life comes down to math. And if your record keeping is left to Service Titan or Successware or whatever tracking mechanism that your company has for you, like and you're not tracking your own household budget. Service Titan isn't tracking your personal finances, right? Like, why do you leave it to somebody else to do the tracking for you? It's your house. You got little kids and a wife that are looking at you, and you're responsible, right? At the end of the day, dad has got to make this happen, right? And tell you what, your wife and your kids, they probably spend a lot of time scrolling their Instagram, and they see the trips that their friends are taking, the weekend, this or that, the new car, the whatever, right? And, they see this stuff, and they probably wonder when it's going to be my turn, right? Wow, I wish that dad could take us to Disneyland, or he could take us to Hawaii, or wow, they got that great new car, or look at what all those kids are wearing, or look at that vacation they took. And our kids are looking at this, and our wife is looking at this, and they're depending upon us to give them enough so that they can feel as good about their lives as the lives of everybody else that they see on Instagram, right? It's up to us, right? It's a heavy responsibility. And as a man, it's a real sobering thought to think that you're not able to do for them what other people are doing for their families. And that should be enough for all of us to put our head down and to work harder and to want to be better and to do everything that we can to give them what they want, right? They deserve that. This is your little tribe, right? And you love them and you want to give them everything. And so that goes back to the math and knowing your math. And you should be able to come up with a household budget and do the backwards math to figure out exactly how much you have to sell, how many calls you have to run, how much you have to sell on every call in order to have that kind of success and do those things for your family. These are building blocks of success, right? And so I know that, you get told a lot about the way you run your calls and tracking your personal achievements at work, but really everything that you're doing at home, all of that success starts at home, right? If your life is in order, your job is in order. And so that backwards math has to take you to what you're really doing this all for, right? And it's for those people at home. And that's something to remember as you're driving around running your calls today, right? We have an obligation and responsibility to those people. And I know that when I wake up every day and I go to work, I'm thinking about them. I got a little picture of them on my desk, right? They're my why. They're what drive me. I'm out there doing my best. And if I have to do a little more, if the math says I have to do a little more, great. But you got to know your math, right? So it's just some advice that everybody on this call needs to know their math, because that math is going to be the difference between that trip that they might want to take and not taking it. And I can go on forever, gentlemen. I think that, for me as an operator who has a lot of people, suiting up and putting on our colors every day in 4 different locations, the important things for me, for everybody that works for us, is that they protect our brand. They're out there giving superior customer service. They're putting on a show in every house. They're getting incredible reviews from our clients. They're selling those service agreements to ensure extra work for for everybody in the room, right? Like that's a real thing. Like you know, here where we don't have the demand calls like we talked about, I really need those service agreements because if we don't have those, I'm not going to have enough work for the volume of technicians that I have, right? Um, so I see these people that run calls for us, and I look at, I like I said, I judge everybody. I look at their vehicles. I'm looking for the people that aren't drama, right? And are who are out there just doing great work for our brand and helping to protect it and making sure we don't have a bunch of bad reviews and making sure that we don't have a bunch of driving issues and we're not getting, calls from people on the road that say that we can't park and we can't drive and all of that stuff. And these are important things to me. For my technicians, I always want them to be the expert. When I stand in front of them, I talk to them about independent learning, and there's only so much that we can do in the meeting rooms to make sure that they're prepared, and that it's really incumbent upon all of my technicians and salespeople to know everything about every tax credit and rebate and benefit and feature of the new equipment. I would hope that if anybody walked into my house and tried to, take 20,000 of my dollars, it's not going to happen unless I really feel good about their knowledge base, right? I'm a tough customer, and I think it's a stranger could. I mean, when you think about what we do, it's crazy, right? To walk into a stranger's house and leave with $20,000 after 2 hours, it's crazy. But in order for that to happen in my house, like it has to be a really sharp individual who's really well prepared and really knows their stuff, right? I want to be able to pop off a question, and if I can get an answer real quick, and I don't hear a bunch of stumbling and bumbling, like you don't go to the dentist and lay back and he sees something and then all of a sudden he's Googling to see what he's looking at because he's an expert, right? You're not gonna you don't want the guy who's YouTubing it, right? What am I looking at here in this guy's mouth? No, you want an expert, and it's everybody on this call. It's all of your jobs to be the expert, and that's really going to happen because of your efforts, right? It can't. It's only a certain amount of it's going to happen in the meeting rooms that you're sitting in. You got to take it outside of that meeting room, and you have to be a self-directed learner. And just like Brian was talking about when we started, the podcasts are really, I think, an incredible thing. It's a free education. These podcasts, and I think the industry has changed in the last 5 years because of them. And if you want to be able to spend an hour listening to somebody who sells 12 or 14 million dollars or whatever a year, or $8 or $6 million a year, it's out there, right? You can search it and find these folks and just soak all that up and see how you can apply it every day. As an operator, I listen to the podcasts all the time because I feel like there are people who are much smarter than me, who have had a greater amount of success than me, and I want to be able to learn everything that I can from them. And I know that Brian worked for Ken Goodrich, and like 3-4 nights ago, I was in the garage and I put on one of Ken's podcasts. I love listening to him talk. I think he's a great mentor. I've known him for a really long time. And, just if I can, in that hour when I'm working in the garage, if I can pick up something that I can apply in my business the next day, it's free to me. And why wouldn't you do that? I think I've done 13 or 14 podcasts in the last 2.5 years. I'm blessed, and I'm humbled that I get asked to do these things. And I do it really just to help contractors, right? I don't get paid to do any of this stuff, but I do it. I think that people recognize that I might have had a little success. And if I'm able to impart some of that will help a small contractor or a selling technician or a manager somewhere, like I love that. It's a great feeling for me, I just think in our industry, there's a great sense of cooperation that's happened over the last few years, really since these podcasts have taken off. And I would say that all of you should, there's a lot of them out there. Search them, use them. Use that windshield time, like Brian said. Don't waste that time. You can become better by doing this. Have your written plan, know your math, take care of your family, right? They're depending upon us, right? So as you guys go out there today, and I see it's 8 o'clock, and I know everybody has calls to run, but go out there and figure out what's going to make a difference for you, whether it's through a podcast or through extra math or through better preparation or any of the things that we've talked about today. There are a lot of ways to get better, right? But it's on you guys. Your managers will help you, but really at the end of the day, if you're trying to do the best thing for your family, you have to work harder, right? And there's a lot of successful people that we all know in life who just work harder. Steph Curry doesn't step up from three-quarter court and throw the ball in the air and sink it like he does without working really hard to be able to do that, right? So work harder, everybody. All right. And it's been my pleasure to be here. I hope that you got something out of the stuff that I've had to say. And I'm easy to find and easy to reach, and I'm always, willing to be a resource and be available. If anybody has any questions about the things that we do in our business, I'm always happy to share.